Hello and welcome to my channel. It has been a while since we have gathered here, and normally I would go through like a whole monologue for you guys about why that's been, but I'm just going to get to the topic of today's video. Well, the topic. So there's been a lot going on in the world of celebrity and pop culture, and you know that is something that I like to talk about, so I am going to talk about it now. And you know what? Let's just get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the situation that happened this past weekend with the release of the video featuring Puff Daddy, Diddy, Brother Love, whatever, violently abusing his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. I think when the charges and allegations were brought against him last year in the form of a lawsuit filed by Cassie, and Diddy, just quickly settled with her, a lot of us for the first time were let into what was really going on behind closed doors. I made a video talking about it then where I said, if you're somebody like me and you're on the outside thinking that Cassie was just living the life, getting her stuff paid for, living underneath this powerful rich man, living in his house and having access to all of his things. I think the only question that I had at the time before all the allegations came to light was, are they ever going to get married? Does she want marriage with him? Because I think during the time that they were together, he got Kim Porter, his ex-girlfriend who passed, or who was, he got her pregnant and had the twins. So I'm not, or maybe no, maybe the twins are older than that. But the point is that it was very known that like there were still other women coming in and out. And so I was just wondering kind of like, what was she doing there? But I never expected it for it to be the level of evil and deceit and terror that was, that was exposed when this information came out. You've always had people out there who are whistleblowers who talk about how evil and corrupt the industry is. Jaguar Wright is somebody who stands out to me as someone who does this. But, until you see proof yourself, sometimes you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And I'm not saying I didn't believe Cassie. I believed her. I absolutely believed her. But I just didn't seeing it as something else. Because I think for me, the fact that he still would post anything on social media, the fact that he would show his face at all, knowing that content like that exists, knowing that they have it on tape, what he did to her. Like it's not just your word against my word. It's not just your feelings against my feelings. There's proof. And the fact that he would try and continue on his business as usual and say and claim that the allegations against him were lies. Like I was not, I cried when I saw the footage. I cried. It really did take it out of me. And, my heart just went out to her, and I was just so grateful that she was able to get out when she did. Of course, there was some ignorance out there whenever the video was released, people saying, I think the most ignorant thing in the world is somebody saying we shouldn't judge him. Okay. And, I have before, when there's been situations that have happened, such as, somebody releases someone's text messages or whatever, I have been, somebody to say, hey, we weren't in the relationship. We don't know, actually, if we look into it, they're both going at each other. So I don't know how cool I am with this, etc. This situation doesn't seem, I've given definitely a more compassionate, verdict when it comes to how people should be seen with regard to what their personal relationships are like. But with Puff Daddy, it just seems like Cassie was one piece of a very diabolical puzzle. And he is an evil, evil man who was able to get away with just extreme atrocities for so long. And in fact, this was a situation where I actually had to step back and look at people that I have withheld certain types of judgment from. So for example, and this breaks my heart, but Beyonce. You all know I love Beyonce. Even if I got to go toe to toe with people in the comments when I talk about her music or her makeup or her movie, whatever, I will do that because I love Beyonce. But the fact that Puffy is so close to Jay-Z, and you're never gonna convince me that people who weren't around him did not see how he was treating this young woman. And so I can't imagine. I'm not saying Beyonce should have bust up in the house and been like, ring the the alarm, let Cassie out of here, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, I couldn't be married to a man who was in business with a man like Puff Daddy. And it just makes me kind of look at what I'm not going to sit up here and play. I don't play into the Illuminati stuff. I don't play into the demonic witchcraft stuff. I don't play into so many things that people do say about her, because I don't have any interest in playing into that. But I do question anybody who was around, especially someone who claims to stand for the things that she stands for regarding women. How can you say the things you say and then stand by and be in business with a man like Puff Daddy?
Okay, so I did want to do a little interlude here. I'm back, and so are my interludes. For those of you who are not new to this channel, this is something I do just to clarify. I want to say that I understand that it is ironic that I'm having this issue with Beyonce when just a couple months ago I was talking about her on this channel and people were like, well, I don't support her anymore because she didn't speak out about what's going on in Palestine or with the Palestinians and with Gaza. And I said, I understand people aren't required to speak publicly about everything. We don't know what she's doing privately. I do understand why somebody would strategically choose not to put the weight of their platform behind a political situation. And this is a very sensitive issue, what's happening there. And as long as you know where you stand, at the end of the day, that should be okay. I did say that. I do think that. I do think that this is a situation where individuals have to just be very open and honest about what they're supporting, and they have to make sure they're informed. I think there's a lot of reasons why somebody would choose with this specific situation not to use their platform. I do understand that. I'm not saying that it's right, but I do understand it. However, my disappointment in this issue comes with the fact that this was happening in your personal life, right? This is happening in your everyday. It's one thing to say, oh gosh, it's so wrong what's going on. I'm in Texas right now, right? It's so wrong what's going on in Tucson, Arizona. If I'm ever there, I wouldn't stand for that. And you shouldn't stand for it either, the world. But at the end of the day, outside of maybe donating nothing's going on in Tucson. This is a random place. But outside of donating, outside of raising awareness, outside of saying something, there's not anything I can really directly do to ensure that the right thing happens. However, if something is happening right under my nose, it's happening at my business deals, it's happening maybe at my house, at my Christmas parties, there is something that I can do to make sure people know that I'm on the right side of history with this thing. And when I look at her and Sean Combs, her husband, Sean Carter, Jay-Z's relationship with Diddy, or relationship with any of these darker people in the industry, hell, her relationship with Jay-Z, I'm looking at that like, who is that man? That is something that's happening in your home. That's right. And how can you say you stand for anything good if these are your friends? And I don't know everything. I don't know what she does or doesn't do in her private life. So I'm trying to withhold judgment. I just know that when I saw that clip, that's the first thing that came to mind. Y'all are friends with this dude? You're friends with him? This is your guy? And I felt that way about anybody in the industry who has stood by Puff Daddy when he's been doing these things to these women, because they heard about it. Your reputation. If Amanda Seales can be uninvited from everything for years, people talk. So I do think it's a little bit different. I know there are those of you out there who will find it ironic that I have a problem with her now. But that's how I work. That's who I am as a person. You're welcome to have different beliefs and to feel differently. But I did just want to clarify that. Anyway, back to the video.
It was the first time that I kind of looked at her and began to question it's hard to explain, but this was the first time that I began to look at not only her, but anybody who's ever been photographed with him, who's ever partied with him. And that's a lot of Black Hollywood. That's a lot of and they sat back and watched and knew what kind of man he was. And this is more than just somebody who maybe drinks too much, maybe does a little bit of, maybe illicit. This is serious. This person is deeply ill, deeply depraved, evil. And I just can't, had brunches, the Rock Nation brunch for years, and Puffy's there smiling at, you had to have seen something. And what sticks out to me is how quickly Beyonce and Jay-Z distanced themselves from Kanye. And, when it comes down to it, Kanye was embarrassing, right? As evil as Puffy is, he's not embarrassing. He's not kicking people off the stage. He's not making wild accusations all over social media. He can play the respectability game. So he's cool. It just made me look at my biggest, and it hurts my heart, but it made me look at her different. And nobody will make me think differently about that. I still love her. I still love the music, but any woman who sat back and knew what Cassie was going through. And, some people have brought up, they've said well, what were we supposed to do? Her friends, people have said, well, you guys sat by and let her be treated like this. And then there's stories of friends who tried to come to her aid being unalived. And, we all heard what happened with Kid Cudi. And so maybe there was fear there, but I don't know. It made me look at Hollywood really differently, every single person. And as far as Diddy coming forward and making that apology, I was just like, I've said this before about celeb apologies. People really don't care if you're sorry. I think the biggest issue with Puffy's apology was that he made it sound like it was a one-time thing, or he was only dealing with that at that point in his life. When we know, when there's record of, when the allegations that came forward about him, of him acting up and doing things months ago, last year, so it's just, I'm normally the type of person, again, who does like to extend compassion and does like to say, oh, well, people make mistakes, but this is terrible. And once again, I'm so happy that Cassie got out. If I was him, I would take all of my children's faces off of my social media because he's a disgrace of a father. I would turn the comments off on my social media because what's the use of having that? Oh, maybe, hey, leave them on. Let people throw tomatoes at you. You've earned it. And I would no longer, I don't know. I would go into seclusion. I'd be a recluse if I was him. There was a lot of advice for young women when it came to dating going around last year about finding a wealthy man, a powerful man to take care of you, et cetera, et cetera. And while I'm not telling people not to do that, if that's something you want to do, vet these men, vet these powerful men in these dark places, vet them, because it's very easy for somebody to do abuse by proxy, financial abuse, physical abuse, if they feel like, or if they make you feel like your entire life is in their head. Everything you have is attributed to them and their power, and they gave it to you for an exchange. And that exchange is usually going to be the use of your body. And it's going to be a very high cost to pay. So just when you're listening to and when you're taking that advice, make sure you're also making sure these men have good character. And my heart goes out to any young woman who finds herself in the palm of the hand of an evil, predatory, disgusting, terrible demon of a man. Like Puff Daddy. My heart goes out to her. So the next thing that I want to talk about, speaking of silly, well, not silly men, because Diddy's a straight up demon, but speaking of men that make us disappointed and frustrated, I want to talk a little bit about Clay from Love is Blind. So I actually made a video about this last week, and then I just never uploaded it because, like with the Diddy situation, things changed so quickly. And so by the time I had recorded my response, he had already come out and denounced his behavior, etc. And you know what I'm talking about if you were on social media last week. Clay from Love is Blind. It turned out that he was spending time with a young woman named Celina Powell, who is a very well-known foil for young Black male rappers. She is someone who has lied about pregnancies with rappers like Offset. She's lied about her history with men. She apparently has slept with a lot of them. And she's really not someone that you want to be associated with if you are a man of any kind of caliber or quality. And Clay from Love is Blind, who turned down AD at the altar because of one reason being her finances weren't where he would have wanted them to be. Clay was posted in the bed with Celina, hanging out with her, giving her kisses on the cheek. And for those of us who knew who she was, and also for those of us who watched the last season of Love is Blind, that was like a stab in the chest. I was so angry when I saw that. And I was just very disgusted. I thought his mother's response was interesting. I think I was disgusted for a different reason than a lot of people. My disgust came from a place of embarrassment because I went to bat for Clay when I was giving my review on Love is Blind. Well, not necessarily went to bat for him, but I didn't put him in the same box as everyone else. Specifically, I didn't want to say that the reason he rejected AD was because of something that she didn't provide for him aesthetically. More specifically, I didn't want to say it was just because she was a dark-skinned woman. I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get eaten up for it in the comments, and that's okay. A lot of times I feel like when we as Black women are judging another Black woman's situation, and that is a very popular pastime on the internet, to judge another Black woman's situation. That's very popular. But a lot of times when we're doing that, we tend to do the worst case scenario. We tend to minimize why the situation went wrong. And more often than not, we bring it down to the woman's level of desirability, which makes it sound like it's the woman's fault. Because she was dark-skinned, he didn't want her. That's how it sounds to me. Whenever people cry, oh, this is colorism. Well, this was colorism. It's just simple colorism. Like somebody could get their fries late at a restaurant, and there is somebody out there who will make a video and be like, oh, I didn't get my fries. It was colorism. It could have been colorism, the reason why you got your fries late. But sometimes you got your fries late because the kitchen was backed up. And sometimes a man and a woman don't work out because they don't work out. It's not always colorism, but I feel like that in and of itself is a trauma response. We are used to, as Black women, being told why we are not acceptable and why we are undesirable. And a lot of times it is due to skin color. Skin color is brought up a lot. And so we can't help but project that back onto circumstances. And I try and, as somebody who has definitely looked at it maybe through a different lens, so somebody would scream colorism, I might say it's pretty privileged, you know? I try and be a little bit more, just practice a little bit more nuance, especially with a show like Love is Blind, because we do get to learn more about the man as a whole. We got to learn about Clay's past when it came to his parents, and we got to learn, like, he shouldn't have been on the show. He just shouldn't have been there. And so I didn't want to say he rejected AD because of something she didn't provide for him physically. I didn't want to say it was because of her dark skin. I didn't want to put that on her. But you know what? When he popped out with Celina, just happy as a clam, I was like, you know what? Damn. Well, damn. You try and extend someone like, okay, we're going to look at this a little bit of a different way. And wow, didn't he show us? And I think even if you step out of the colorism thing and you just tried to give him a little bit of compassion because he was a man trying to work on himself and he's going to therapy, be a better man, AD, you were the love of my life, etc. He still threw all of that away by rolling around with her. Any good character, any solid, like any stand-up dude he could have appeared as, it was gone in a minute. And Celina got a mouth on her. She'll talk. She documented posting him. She documented being mad at his mom for saying that, you know, she was a harlot and Jezebel. And then she documented when they fell apart. You know, he lied to me. He said, or not he lied to me, but he lied to that girl. He's only on the show for money, et cetera, et cetera. I've said before that if you get picked to be on Love is Blind, you should not be happy because you're either being used because they can tell you're going to make some good drama, or you're being used as a straight man to foil the drama, maybe. And if you end up meeting a good person on that show, good for you. If you end up being one of the boring couples, you did it. But for the most part, if you get cast on that show, it's because somebody out there thinks you're an idiot who's going to make for good TV. And I think that's why Clay got cast. I loved for AD, though, that she was jumping on. She was doing lives. And people were asking, they were like, you know, can you talk about it, like in the chat? And she was like, talk about what? I just want to vibe and chill and sip my drink and talk about her endorsement deals and her brand trips. She is really, really in her influencer era right now. And I like the fact that she's not entertaining any of this conversation. But I did feel for her. And I felt for me and any other idiot who fell into Clay's, I'm in therapy, I'm working on myself, I don't feel bad, she's the love of my life. I was like, look at us. Look at us, dummies. He was on a podcast and Clay was talking and he was like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna be a good guy 360 days out of the year, but you know, 5 days out of the year, I'm gonna mess up. And that's just 5 days. Shut up. Stop going on podcasts. Stop talking. You have lost the good graces of the internet. And, you know, I think he'll always have people out there who want to see him but I know for me, I don't want to see him anymore. I wash my hands of Mr. Gravesand. Like that was a punch to the gut. I really, Speaking of men that make people angry, there's a theme to this little video today. I want to talk for a second about Simone Biles sticking up for her husband, James Owens. I'm not kidding. I really don't know his first name. Jonathan Owens. Simone has had it with the comments against her man. She's had it. She posted this on Instagram the other day, and then she posted this on TikTok. And honestly, my heart goes out to her. Look at me always sending my heart out to somebody. But my heart goes out to her because I feel like everybody should there should be a class people have to take before they start posting their personal business on the internet. I could teach it. And the biggest thing I want to say is if you are a Black woman, the onus is on you to be in a good relationship before you open your mouth online, more than it's on any other race of woman. And I say this because it's number one, it's like a sport for people to judge and ridicule Black women for their bad choices when it comes to relationships. Like you're going to hear it from the red pill community. You're going to hear it from the femininity community. You're going to hear it everybody wants their chance to kind of like pick you apart until you're just like a carcass with nothing left. And then, you know, just statistically speaking, people want to see things they can look up to. And within the Black community, you have a lot of instances where love and relationships don't work out that well for Black women sometimes. So before you get on the internet and you start talking, please know like the wolves are waiting to tear you apart if you come in with something that is janky and not right. And the way that everybody had read the Simone Biles situation before that man opened his mouth last year and said he didn't know who she was before they got married was mostly positive. And that was good. It was good for Simone's brand as an Olympian. It was good for her brand as a champion. It was good for her brand as a Black woman, because Black women are not allowed to come on the internet with a man that is clowning them. It happens in all races, but I think we pay a higher cost for it for the reasons that I stated a couple of seconds ago. So anyway, so Simone, she hops on, or her husband hops on this podcast and he says what he says about her. And that happened back in December. It is May. And people are still in her comments. People are still, anytime she talks about him, it's still, and here's my thing. I didn't like it either. I didn't like what he said. I thought it was full of crap. I thought it was just straight from his ego. I thought that he did not protect her in that moment. I thought he needed to take some classes on how to be married to a successful woman, how to be married to and how to talk about your successful Black woman, how to be married to and talk about a successful Black athlete, how to be married and talk about Simone Biles. Like I just felt like it was a learning opportunity for him. And what I wished he would have done after all was said and done, what I wish they both would have done was listen to what people were saying and not just assume that everyone was going out of their way to misunderstand their marriage or so on and so forth. People really just wanted him to put some respect on her name. That's all we wanted. And I wish that after realizing that, he would have come out with a statement that said, hey, I misspoke on the podcast the other day. I'm very grateful to have her as my wife. That's not how I meant to come off. When I said I didn't know who she was, at that time in my life, I wasn't following the Olympic, but I quickly found out who she was. Yes, she did hit me up first. It's a dating app. It happens sometimes. But when I figured out like what I was doing and what I had, I did my job as a man. Whatever. I mean, there was so much that they said that, again, as a Black woman, I would not say, and I've admitted to some stuff on the internet, right? And I've paid the cost for that. And so there were some things that were said about their courtship. There were some things that I just, But all he needed to say was, I misspoke on the podcast. I did not mean to embarrass my wife. I love her. I'm very grateful for our marriage. And this is definitely a learning situation for me. And I'm going to do better going forward. That's all he had to say, right? I think sometimes people need to understand that all people want is for you to recognize that you did what you did wrong. Now, will they forgive you for it all the time? Maybe not. But at least all you can do as a person is say, hey, you wanted me to recognize it. I recognized it. I'm going to move forward. You come with me or not, but I'm moving forward. What happened with this situation in this relationship is there was no recognition. There was no announcement of, hey, I misspoke. It was just double down, double down, double down. She walks around with a necklace that says Owens. She has said one day nobody will say who I am. Simone Biles, a gymnast. They will know me as his wife. When she said that, I was like, no, I don't care who you are. Black woman, white, I don't care who you are. Never, ever, ever denounce your accomplishments in that way in the favor of just being called. Like, what are you, and in what world are we going to know him more than we know you? Where are you? What are you thinking about? What is going on? So I think their decision to just double down after that and not just play the game, just play the PR game. Just play it. Play it. It'll be easier for you. It's not going to take away none from your relationship. Play the game. I think that made things worse on her. And so here we are. We're in May, and people are still in her comments talking about the kind of husband he is, still in her comments talking about how she deserves better. And then this is where I disagree with people. Again, I didn't like it. I didn't like the statement. I did not like what he said. I did not like what he did. But it doesn't help to continue to harass her about it. It doesn't help. And, there's people who can say, we just want better for her. We just want something that bothers me. Anytime somebody admits that they were in a situation with a man and maybe something went wrong, maybe that man did not do his part as a man. I don't know. There's this concept of, okay, well, now you have to throw the whole man away and find another one. And the thing is like good men, and you make up your mind about what that is, but men are not a renewable resource. And I know people say, men are like buses, you miss one and another one comes along. I think you live a little bit of life and you realize that even if that is the case, you're not going to connect with every single one of them. You're not going to marry every single one of them. You're not going to be in love with every single one of them. You're not going to have a certain relationship, be it physical, emotional, intellectual, with every single one of them. So they can keep coming, but everyone is not going to hit the same. And so this concept of, this man embarrassed you, so now throw him away. I have a problem with that. I wish that instead the message was, has he learned his lesson yet? But how is he speaking about you? You're saying all these great things, but how is he speaking about you? How is he talking about you? If we gave him a mic again, what would he say? Did he learn how he needs to speak about you? I don't like the concept of, okay, well, throw him away. Throw him away. Throw the man away. You deserve to get. I don't like that. And I also don't like consistently writing in somebody's comments the same stuff over and over and over again. It's not going to make a difference. At a certain point, it becomes harassing. At a certain point, you are bothering that person. And if I was Simone, by now, I would have changed my comments to only people I follow and people who follow me. Because, hey, girl, you didn't already shown us you have no problem with him talking about you that way. You want to, and so anything anybody says on the outside is not going to help you. It's just not. And it's not going to add to your life in a positive way. So why are you listening to it? And I hope she's learned by now, too, that social media doesn't forget. They don't forget. So if she wants her peace protected, she's going to have to create those boundaries. And again, it just goes back to people not being prepared. You cannot come on the internet and talk about your janky functified relationship or represent it in that way, or even have an event that begins or that causes people to start thinking about your relationship in that way and expect people to still treat you the same. You can't, especially in my mind, if you are a Black woman, it's the cost is going to be higher. So I just think she didn't know. And so she was like, I can talk about this. I can talk about me making the first move. I can talk about me driving out to see him. I can talk about, no, you can't. You get, You say, we fell in love. Yeah, we got married. Oh, sweetheart, thank you so much for those compliments. But you know what? When we're at home, we're just a regular couple. But I love that he recognizes like my accomplishments and that he supports me. Thank you so much. And that's it. Don't share nothing else. Because if you do, people going to come for you. And you're not going to like it. And I don't think she was prepared. And so, this is unfortunately a tough lesson that she has to learn. Speaking of Black women and marriage and their relationships, can we talk about the Black wife effect? So about 2 weeks ago, I started seeing this pop up on my FYP on TikTok. And I loved it. I loved it. And I loved it because I know what it's like to be with somebody, be with a partner, and you get with them and you're like, oh, okay, that's how he likes to dress, whatever. And over time, because y'all are intimate with each other, because you see each other all the time, because your feelings are growing, whatever, as a woman in general, you're like, I wonder if you just made this little adjustment, honey. How would that go? One time in my past, I was involved with a man who had curly hair, and he would always do like a buzz cut. And so one day, I saw an older picture of him, and I was like, why don't you wear this? Like, this is beautiful. So he started wearing his hair like curly, and it was hot. He looks good. He also started, I was like, why don't you wear this? Just suggestions, right? I have gone over to a man's house before and just walked right to the closet. And I'm like, what's happening? What's with this? And you know what? Vice versa. Like, I definitely have heard and listened to critiques or seen how someone might react if I'm wearing a certain type of outfit. And I've been like, oh, that's how it makes you feel? Okay. And so I start wearing that a little bit more. I don't think there's any problem. I mean, we can go back to old stories, like old Greek literature, like Pygmalion. We can go back to the modern remakes of that story. My Fair Lady, She's All That, where somebody says, hey, I see something in this person, and I'd like to draw it out. And when I draw it out, it's going to be somebody that fits more with my vision of what my partner should look like. Now, the only problem I see with this is if it causes you pain, if it's uncomfortable for you, as far as like if you're the person that's transformed, if it makes you feel worse about yourself, if it makes you feel in any way your unauthentic self. But if it makes you feel better, if it makes your partner more aroused, if it makes you feel sexier because the person that you love and you're involved with likes looking at you more, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I loved the transformations that I saw. Some of them, the men looked very urban afterwards, which I'm not surprised, because you have a lot of Black women who won't date interracial unless, the guy is giving Travis Kelce in his Kayla Nicole days, right? So those remakes were definitely there. But then you just had some people who just looked cleaner. They looked like grown men when they got with these women. And I loved it. And I think I also loved it and didn't really attribute anything negative to it, because a couple months ago, the girlfriend effect was popular. So people posting what their boyfriends look like after, they started dating them, and how they went in and transformed their outfits. So for me, it was kind of like this universal thing. I'd seen it before. Now we were seeing it through the lens of Black women. And because we were seeing it through that lens, just like I said back with the whole thing when I was talking about AD, sometimes just anything that happens with us, it has to have this kind of like treacherous undercurrent to it, right? It can't just be Clay and AD didn't work out. It's Clay and AD didn't work out because he's a colorist. That's what it is. It's her dark skin. That was the reason why he was a jackass, right? Same thing with this. It couldn't just be, oh, Black women are dating these men and elevating them. Go, girl. I started to see people making comments and critiques. This is the mammification of Black women. It's just a man, doing what evolving on the back of a Black woman's labor. What? Damn. Okay. And then I started seeing people saying, well, look at them. It's like they can't be with a Black man. So they do this. They make and I'm like, I know people ain't saying that when we live in a world where we had an entire family of women become billionaires because all of their partners were Black. So they went out and started cosplaying as Black women for at least 20 years. And I'm talking about the Kardashians. And then when they stopped dating Black partners, and so they took out their ass implants and stopped wearing cornrows in their hair, it was very noticeable. Like, I know we're not going to talk about Black women and this Black wife effect as if it's the first time. Just a lot of negativity was shrouded over it. And I was like, here we go again. Here we go again. We just can't have this sweet little cute little thing. I started seeing the Black husband effect. One lady got up there and said, this is the Asian husband effect. And she was like, when I would go out before I met my Asian husband, I would just wear my Jessica Simpson shoes. And now that I'm with my Asian man, well, I have all red bottoms. So if you know what that means. And I want to point this out, in general, every partner is not going to do the same thing for you, no matter what their race is, et cetera, et cetera. It is cool when there's some cohesiveness and we can kind of see a pattern, but that's not always going to happen. I know for me, I actually I like having an input, but it's very sexy to me when a man already comes and he knows what looks good on him and he has his own sense of style. I remember, never mind, I'm not gonna go into it, but I enjoy seeing it. I enjoy seeing the transformations. I enjoy seeing women with men that they now feel balance them out and you know, represent them in the best way. I love it. I love seeing Black women loved. I thought it was something to celebrate. I do not like how every trend that we're in has to have this treachery applied to it. I don't like that, but it is what it is. I will say though, one thing I'd like to see, like a trend, is like the love effect, and see people like who they were before they, like, because I think love in general can be very transformational. But and I really do think that that's what we're seeing. We're not just seeing somebody who's playing house with a man, because we're seeing someone who loves and sees the highest form of someone. We're seeing, and no matter what race she is. And I say that because, you know, again, there's the girlfriend effect. There's all these different versions of this trend. And it just comes down to loving someone and wanting to see the best in them. It doesn't have to be so dark and so treacherous just because a Black woman is involved, but social media will make it that way if you let it. One of the reasons why I haven't been online is because I was out of town. I did two things. I was a wedding videographer and photographer. Well, videographer. I used to do photography and stuff back in the day, and I stopped for a really long time, and so I was doing that. And then afterwards, I took myself to Disney on one of the many little solo trips I have planned for myself this year. And so I'm going to upload a vlog about that to this channel in a couple days here. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. And speaking of Disney, I'm going to talk about my last little topic here, which was the Amanda Seales interview that she did with Shannon Sharpe a couple weeks ago. So I say speaking of Disney when I want to talk about this interview, because while I was at Disney World, I started to get sent a couple reels and DMs about the fact that Disney had also taken some creators to Disneyland around the same time, like same days. And I was like, oh, okay. And people asked me, they said, well, are you there with Disney? And I just kind of laughed a little bit for two reasons. The first reason is I just laughed because I was like, of course, Disney would take people at the same time I'm like taking and paying for everything by myself. And I also laughed because I felt like it was the perfect test for my ego. This has really been a year where I've had to look and adjust my expectations when it comes to my trajectory in the content space. And that's taken a lot of like divorcing and distancing myself from what I think I should have. And it's a very painful process. And it is hard. And I see content creators going through it every day. Every day I jump on TikTok and I see, especially Black creators, talking about how, you know, they've been making content for so long. They still don't have managers. They don't get to go to brand events. They, you know, whatever. And for me, what has worked is being honest about what I am presenting to the internet. Am I presenting things that are aspirational? Am I presenting something that's aesthetic? If I'm being myself, is it an authenticity that is fun and that does not cause my audience a lot of emotional labor? Or do people leave my content feeling very negatively? And if I'm being myself and I'm being authentic, there's only so much I can control. However, I have to realize that if that's the reality of what happens to somebody when they invest in my content, then that means that I'm gonna, like, there's been a lot of thinking that I've had to do to divorce myself from the idea of what can be accomplished in this space as I've presented it so far in my life on the internet. And it's been going very well. So well, in fact, that the news that Disney took a bunch of Black creators to Disneyland at the same time that I'm out there by myself, minding my business on a solo trip, news that months before would have crushed me. I just laughed and I just responded to people. I was like, no, I'm here by myself. But, you know, I hope they have fun. And, you know, if you look at it, like, I'm not the Disney type. The people who were invited, they dance on the internet. They have kids. They're very, like, you know, it's very fun, family friendly, brand safe. That's not me. It's important, especially in this business, to have honest conversations with yourself about why you're not at the table, right? Which brings me to Amanda Seales. I'm not going to say anything I haven't already said before. I have a lot of empathy for Amanda. And in fact, I think she's doing 1,000, a million, a trillion times better navigating her own path than she would ever do trying to fit into the cookie cutter expectations of the industry that she is angry at right now. I think sometimes that's the best and only thing you can do. When you realize, okay, I don't fit into what they need to see to get me a seat at the table, the next best thing is navigating your own path. And Amanda is doing that like perfectly, like mwah, chef's kiss. Everything she's doing is, in fact, I think all of this stuff that's come out about her this year has only helped her because there's so many people who have so much compassion for her because they see themselves in Amanda. And so I just know that Patreon numbers have been up. I know her YouTube channel numbers are up. You know what I mean? So I think, you know, she's forging her own path, and I think that that's amazing. Her interview with Shannon Sharpe was so long ago. So all I will say is he wasn't a great match for her intellectually, but that's not why he exists. He exists because he has created a space for himself as being a cultural zeitgeist, the place where people can come from Black culture, specifically in Black entertainment, and tell their stories and share their truth. And he provides them that. And so he doesn't have to be a Mensa level journalist. Like, that's not who he is or who he has to be. I feel like he could have handled some of her truths a little better, but he didn't. And she lived. All it did was help her with compassion. I do think it would behoove her to, instead of presenting everything like this is what happened to me, for her to say, okay, I know that this is what I did, etc. I didn't see any of that really in the interview. I felt for Issa after it was over because I know from what I've heard about Issa Rae that she's not the kind of person that's going to put her feelings or her whatever on Front Street. And as a result, when social media is like, okay, we've heard her side, what is your side? She's just not going to get involved, and people are going to take that as an admittance of guilt. So her Instagram comments were a mess at that time. But again, she's just not here for the BS. She's going to keep going. It just left me wishing for a time in Amanda's life where she did sit back and say, okay, I could have come at this differently, instead of always assuming that anybody who doesn't accept her is just in the wrong. She doesn't have to do this. She doesn't have to do anything. She's doing just fine. But I think that, I know for me personally, that has helped me experience a lot less pain when it comes to not being accepted, especially in this space. And that's kind of where I am. And I wish that hopefully, eventually, I think she'll get there. I mean, who am I to comment on what she'll do? Whatever. But that was just what I walked away with from that. I just, I'll bring her a lot. The quicker she gets there, she might already be there. But the quicker she gets there, the more peace she will have. And that is all I wanted to say about that. So I just wanted to come here and talk about a bunch of quick little topics. Didn't want to hold you guys for too long. What have you been up to since I've been gone? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I will be back soon with another video. As for right now, thank you for watching.